friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori, and today I'm very excited. We've been planning this for a while now, and finally got a chance to sit down and do this video together. So Kay and I are, I would say, fairly well known at this point on BookTube for being, I would hope, more open and stuff to and diplomatic about other people's opinions and opposite opinions to things that we really love. We've had a lot of experience, you know, at this point with that.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep a straight face.
I know, right? I mean, I get comments about that, which I really appreciate. But today's video, the whole point of this video is to put us to the test. Okay. We're going to go all in and see just how nice Kayla and I actually are, because I have to work really hard at being nice. Kay has the advantage because she was born that way as a Canadian.
As a Canadian, yes.
As a Canadian.
You know, maple syrup through the blood veins. It's all
exactly. It's just that sugary sweet. Yep. Totally.
I'm going to fail today, though, potentially.
That's what I mean. We're here to see the cracks in the armor, you know.
Clearly.
Okay. So what we've done is each of us has taken 6 of the other's favorite books, and we went on to the wild west that is Goodreads and pulled 1-star reviews for all of those books that we are going to throw at each other for the next hour or so. So, Kayla, would you like to start, or would you like me to? How are you feeling? Well, maybe I should start with that. How are you feeling this evening?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
You've had your coffee this morning?
Oddly enough, I did have a coffee today because,
excellent.
You know how the day goes. I've got my calming cup of tea. I don't know if it'll help.
That's smart.
We'll see how it goes. No, but I'm feeling good. I am really curious what these reviews are going to be like, because you can get some really unhinged reviews, and then you can get some really in-depth ones.
Yes.
And I'm just so curious, because for myself as a reviewer, I think I've only ever done one-star review in the time that I've done this.
Me, everybody. We have proof.
Usually, because if it's going to be a 1-star, I'll probably DNF it.
DNF it, yeah.
And I don't, as a rule of thumb, I do not review DNFs because I did not complete the book, so it does not count for a review, in my opinion.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm curious. I feel like I'm there might be words.
There might be. And I have to ask, so when you DNF a book, do you ever say anything on, so because sometimes I won't rate a book that I've DNF'd, but sometimes I will put like, I DNF'd this because X.
Yeah. So I do bi-weekly reading updates on my channel, and I might just throw in there like, hey, had to stop here, wasn't working for me, this got to me, put it down. And I always try and keep it spoiler free. I know people might want to know exactly what it was, but there are also people who might actually want to read the book and not have it spoiled. So yeah, it's very rare that I DNF a book, though.
You know what? Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's start with a big one right away. Thank you. So I'm set to go.
Brilliant. Oh, Calcifer too.
My new Calcifer mug, which matches the background beautifully.
I'm officially jealous.
I love this mug. It's one of my favorite things I own now. Okay. Massive Calcifer fan over here.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
So Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is a so far standalone, right, in the Cosmere. Brandon Sanderson has a reputation of having very high ratings for many of his books, average on Goodreads. All right, are you ready for this? Prepared.
Bring it.
Okay. This is actually the most joyless book I have ever read. Textbooks have more fun with their subject matter than Brandon Sanderson had with these characters, whom he treats with nothing but derision and this magic system, which he over-explained to death, but barely ever utilized for action.
Have they ever read Brandon Sanderson before? That's my question. Okay, I half agree.
Okay.
I half agree, because I will say when I read Warbreaker, I actually didn't like the first half.
Yeah.
It was the second half that sold me. And so I will agree with the joyless part. The characters did feel stale as far as I recall, at least in the first half that I did not like. But I do think he brought it all together pretty well.
At the end.
Right. I think he
Yeah.
brought it together pretty well to save it all and make all of that start of the book,
Right.
the cold characters, the naive characters and the moments that are kind of disconnected, it all comes together at the end really well, so I
Which is
half
very
agree.
Sanderson of him.
Exactly. That's why
Yeah.
my question, has this person read Sanderson before? Because that follows his pattern.
Yeah, and this one, as far as I could tell, was not a DNF. There were a lot
Okay.
of that. I don't know if you found that, but filtering through one-star reviews is a lot of
It's a
DNF
lot of
comments.
DNFs.
Yep,
Yeah.
and so I tried to find ones that were not over-explained to death.
Again, have you read Mistborn?
That's a shtick for
Toss a coin,
Sanderson,
jump.
typically.
Toss a coin, jump. Yeah, that's him.
Rhythm of War. Sorry, what? I'm sorry, that was rude.
I as much as I as much as I like Brandon Sanderson's stories, they're not perfect, but for me, a five-star read or an enjoyable read is one that I walk away thinking about time
Yeah,
and time again. Overall, still enjoying despite its flaws. Um, but yeah, his writing's not perfect. It's not
mhm,
for everyone. But I do think that it's so popular because it's so accessible. And then you get these experienced fantasy readers come in reading Sanderson for the first time, and they're like, "What
yeah,
is this? Who is this
yes,
guy? Why
yeah.
is he explaining magic? I'd never had to have magic explained before." So I half agree.
Fantasy must have a soft magic system in order to be fantasy, clearly.
Uh, clearly, hot
Yeah,
take number 1.
yeah. Okay. I like this one.
Okay.
The Warbreaker. You can't put filet mignon on the menu and then serve up wet socks.
It's a terrible visual.
I
Sorry.
know. You're good. Each character practically wrote a dissertation on how much they've changed their worldviews throughout the story. Interesting, but should have been shorter. Trust your readers, Sanderson. Don't hold our hands through every moment of self-reflection.
Again, is this a highly experienced fantasy reader? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
Mhm.
Someone who's read, like, Raymond E. Feist and all these massive,
Yeah,
authors coming and reading, like, an entry-level fantasy book,
right.
you know? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. I
Again,
liked the filet mignon to wet socks
that's
analogy. That was pretty
disturbing.
gold, I'm not
Is
gonna lie. That was pretty good.
I'll still disturbing.
A little bit.
I can see how it feels overexplained. Mind you, it's been a while since I've read this, but
Kayla's like, "I don't remember anything about this book."
I remember the characters feeling repetitive
Yeah,
in that first half. They felt repetitive.
yeah,
I don't know if that's what they're talking about in terms of the dissertation,
sure.
um, but, uh, I mean,
There
character
is some
development.
navel-gazing in Sanderson books, for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm
Well, you
finding
were very
there.
diplomatic about that, Kayla. So,
Thank you.
yeah,
I Canadian nature came through.
it came through. It's coming through
Saved my butt.
strong. You have given me a standard to live up to now.
So we're starting with, Long Price Quartet.
Oh, dear. Okay.
I kinda went for the short, punchy
I'm sure
ones.
there were some novels written in the one-star review section.
There were some ranty ones, and so
Yeah.
I tried to pick the ones that put it concisely in terms very long and boring. Bought book by accident and decided to give it a shot. Took too long to get into the story that wasn't even very good. Questions, right?
Okay. Yeah, I have questions. I don't think I've ever bought a book by accident, unless it was one I already owned that I didn't think I owned, because that's how my brain works sometimes.
Right.
Um, I will say that Long Price Quartet is definitely one of those series I do not recommend to everyone because
Mm,
it is the epitome of a character-focused slow burn. Like, if somebody tells me they are a
mm.
character-focused reader, I will have them prove it by reading Long Price Quartet. Like, that's if you get through Long Price Quartet and you're like, this is amazing, you are a character focused reader because there's a plot. It's not action-y. It's
Right, okay.
very reflective. It's very internal. It's
Mm.
very theme focused. And it's really about the choices and consequences that characters make over their lifetime.
Sold.
Right, for
Basically.
me, for sure, but I
Yeah.
understand that, you know, a lot of people need a little bit more oomph
Well,
to their stories.
there's that, the different groups there of the slow burn, character driven, and then the plot driven,
Mm,
right? Plot driven
mhm,
people don't really care about characters.
right,
They're, kill your darlings. We don't care. Just
yeah.
make it interesting.
That's fair. I mean, yep, it's the same thing that when people are like, "Malazan is not for me." I get it. I really do. It's for
Yeah.
me. And I'm totally okay with that.
All right. So next one says slow moving, boring, uninteresting. Personally, I think it was an incredible stretch to term this fantasy. I will avoid this author in future.
That escalated very quickly.
Right? That's a harsh stance.
Again, I see it. I really do. It's not traditional fantasy where you have ever-present spectacular magic, you have, like, the traditional heroes and villains. It's a very morally gray field,
Mm.
and the magic really comes in with it. There is a magic system, and in my opinion, it's one of the most unique I've ever read.
Okay.
Um, it's about how the magicians, quote unquote, of the world create manifestations of written word and poetry.
Oh, cool.
It's hard to explain. It's really cool.
Okay.
So the magic is a little bit more, it takes a shape in this book. Like it's
Mm.
almost its own character or characters. I think because of that, it definitely takes a little bit out of the like the ancient hidden kind of feeling that a lot of people look for when it comes to fantasy magic. It's definitely epic fantasy, but it is an outlier in terms of what we would generally think of for sure. How did
Okay.
I do?
Excellent.
Therapy with Kayla.
No, that was great. I think
Thank
you
you.
you covered low fantasy well, but then also um, that sounds like a really interesting magic
It's
system.
so good. It's so good.
So I am really curious on the I will avoid this author in future because I know for myself,
Yeah,
I won't like completely dismiss an author if one of their books didn't
sure.
jive
I
with me. I'll
typically
try
won't
another
either.
one, you
Yeah.
know? But yeah, that
Depends on the book,
escalated.
in fairness.
Okay. Yeah.
There have been a couple of times where I'm like,
And I'm out.
"And no."
Fair enough.
Alright, we're gonna do The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine
Oh,
Arden.
I'm worried actually.
There's a lot of
No.
content in those. Like, it's still primarily
Okay.
positive. However, people had a lot to say. They were there's a these were probably some of the longest one-star reviews too, so I'm gonna try and,
Hmm.
like the plot line starts slow as a lot of characters are established, and I can forgive that. Then a twist occurs, and the reader thinks, here we go, time for some action. But the twist is postponed. So the reader sits back and waits. Then Arden dangles the twist again, and the reader thinks, all right, let's get to the action. But the twist is postponed. This happens twice more. When the twist finally comes, it obviously does not live up to the hype. The finale is then resolved by a in-book confirmed Deus ex machina.
Um, to be fair, I didn't
We're trying to be so nice, you guys. I hope you appreciate us.
the first few twists that they're talking about, I didn't view those as twists.
Ah,
I viewed them
interesting.
as like a setup and then a shift
Sure.
to the true main character.
Like a change of direction slightly, or
I basically setting up the backstory for the longer trilogy,
got it.
right? So you have
Sure.
a bit of lineage idea of what's to come. But you gotta stick through the trilogy to get the payoff on that one. So yeah, I never really viewed those as twists early on.
Mm,
I'd say the final kind of last 2 twists or whatever, those did land for me because, of how it was set up. To me, it
sure.
was just, setting up the baseline of the story. Like, you meet a character's family, and then things happen, then the little kid grows up, and you get to know the little kid and get to see them grow up. Like, yeah, of course, you're gonna go through time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that I agree with that one, but you know, you get what you get from
I
it.
mean, that's the disclaimer on this, right? Everybody's entitled
Yeah,
to their opinion.
exactly.
Okay. Well, this one has a different take on the
Okay.
story. Folk and fairy tales are a genre to themselves with different rules and different strengths than novels. When folk tales are adapted into novels, great care has to be taken to transform archetypes into characters. I just don't think that this book succeeded. It may have attempted to answer questions like, why is the stepmother evil, by giving a technical answer. She also sees demons. It didn't give us a deep, character driven answer, and this happens over and over again throughout this story.
Okay. I feel like there's
Oh, I saw a crack. There was a crack
there's a
there for
crack.
just a second.
There's like 10 points in that
It's true.
alone. There's so many points. You're bringing up genre
Yeah.
and saying that like tough, you need to like, make it its own thing with its own archetypes. I understood that, right?
Right.
They're saying it should be its own thing, but where did fantasy come from? Folk tales, fairy tales. Like
True.
it could be
Mythologies, folk tales. Yep.
you could consider it potentially like the original fantasy,
Yeah.
but yeah, okay, they might have their own rules, but so does fantasy. And if you blend the two, which this is, it's a blending of history and folk tales because the author actually also does take from moments of history in Russia.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know that I agree with that one because I feel like it sounds like an author coming in. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Or someone who took a literature course and is very hard on the rules of
Mhm.
like this genre has to stay in its bubble, this genre has to stay in its bubble.
Literally, darling.
Literary. But if we if if you never blur those lines, you don't get good stories. You don't get interesting worlds, in my opinion. So that one can go away.
We have swept it out,
Just
ladies and gentlemen. It has been swept out into the dustpan.
exactly. Kindly
Yeah.
be dismissed of yourself.
Okay.
All right, I've got White Fang.
Okay.
I'm
Which
really
is quite
hoping
possibly my favorite book of all time. So
well, I'm gonna apologize if I trip over one of these words because I am terrible with this one.
okay.
But the first one is because London relies on anthropomorphism and crude Darwinism, his tale is often stupid and brutal like humans, not like wolves and dogs.
Okay. So the thing about wilderness stories that I think is important to remember, and this is I love a wilderness survival story. It's like one of my favorite things. It is simple and brutal often. You know, when you come into civilization and you have all of these societies and cultures and rules and things and just like everything's so fast paced and everything is there's a level of comfort, there's a level to some degree, there's a there's just a lot more factors. Like you're not in survival mode generally speaking all the time. Now there are people who live in cities who are in survival mode all of the time. But my point is, when it comes to wilderness survival, especially from an animal's point of view, you eat, you stay away from things that are bigger than you,
Mhm.
and you stay away from humans.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
and you reproduce, basically.
Yep.
What I think is so brilliant about White Fang is you have something very wild that is forced to now survive in civilization. He's pulled
Mm.
away from the natural wilderness that he has ingrained in himself as a character. I disagree with the anthropomorphism in terms of White Fang is not a humanized character in the sense that he feels human to me ever.
Okay.
Feels like we are in the mind of a wolf. Now he's thinking thoughts that are translated for human readers,
Right.
obviously. But I think what's so powerful about the story is the contrast between like what we know of humanity and the way that White Fang views humanity in much more simple
Mm.
terms often than we even do.
Are you ready for the next one?
Mhm.
Okay, well, I'm gonna do the slightly longer one then.
Okay.
It's a
Oh
little
dear.
bit more articulate.
Okay.
Um, how an author can write about the indelible spirit of the wolf that yearns to be free even in the most domesticated of dogs can also be the author of a book that takes that spirit and chains it up is beyond me.
I know what they're referring to.
Okay. All right. Spoiler one then.
Yeah. Well, I will say this as, I mean, I said it's a wild animal coming into civilization, which is pretty
Right.
like general. I don't see it as a cage.
Okay.
There are cages in the books, for sure. In the
Mm.
book itself, yes, there are lots of cages that White Fang finds himself in different points. Some of which, I mean, if you're looking at cage as a theme, not to go too deep into it, but this is my favorite book, so I've been here for like a very large chunk of my life. Cage is one of my favorite metaphors in terms of how characters are caged in a physical sense, but also in metaphorical senses, and how we are restricted from doing what we want or freeing ourselves or whatever that looks like. And there are moments where White Fang is caged in the wilderness. If you
Mm.
look at it that way, what we find eventually at the end is something that is a beautiful compromise. That's
You
how I
chose
would.
that word very carefully.
I did. I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, that's my response. I mean, I can understand how that would be hard if you are expecting or looking for a different ending.
Right.
I personally love it.
Yeah. And see, this is where everyone's opinion, their experience of the story, and their
Exactly.
interpretation of it is going to be different, which is why I hate when, high school classes are like, what did the author mean by this? Who knows? Are they alive? They can't tell us.
No.
Just
And
can we?
I think too what's so beautiful about it is it offers us as readers in discussion groups the ability to share our individual experiences with a book. And I mean, we love doing that all the time. So
Yeah, that's
I
why we're
think
here.
it's a beautiful thing to learn how somebody else's experience influenced their reading.
Well put. Eloquent 1-star review meets eloquent rebuttal.
I feel like if I can get through White Fang, I'll be doing okay. Because
You're good.
that one's also very personal. Like a lot of these books,
Right.
I love them. There are personal moments in them. White Fang, I read very young and related to a lot of the themes in it very heavily as a kid.
Right.
That's like one of my most foundational stories in my life. For all of the people who read
Yeah.
my work and they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's like wolf motifs in everything you write." Yes. Correct.
Just yes.
Correct. All right. This is a recent read for you.
Oh, no.
And I sent it to you. The Traveling Cat Chronicles.
Oh, yes.
I
Oh,
forgot I sent it
no.
to you. When you posted and you were like, "Tori sent me this." I was like,
Yeah.
"I did?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I did." My brain is a sieve, everyone, just so we're
As you
aware
can
of that.
tell when you said, "You've read this recently," and I sent it to you, and I just no recollection.
Okay. What I Wanted. A nice little road trip story told from the POV of a cat that would make my cat-loving heart melt. What I Got. A meandering sequence of scenes instead of a plot, many of which were not from a cat's perspective and ends in a super depressing way.
Can we talk about the super meandering part?
Yeah.
'Cause it oh, it
We're rubbing our faces now. We've gotten to a
Yes.
point where we can't.
Yes. I'm also sleep
Self-soothing.
deprived, so, no,
Perfect.
I think that's part of the storytelling, though. When you
Mm,
look at Japanese literary fiction, a lot of it is slow, a lot of it is real life interactions, it's
yeah.
gonna be the mundane stuff. Studio Ghibli, it does
Yeah.
it beautifully. There's Howl's Moving Castle. My favorite scene is Sophie just going on a rage cleaning rampage because
Yep.
I do that.
It's
You know?
amazing.
And it's relatable, and it grounds the overall stories, so I think this book is hard because it's translated from Japanese. It's
Mm,
originally in the culture, the the relationship dynamics, and the social etiquettes, which are so different from our own.
yes.
So, uh, it's unfortunate they didn't enjoy the meandering, but I think that's what sells it for me.
Mm,
I love those little moments in between the characters. Like, this is following an owner and his cat as they go on a cross country trip across Japan to meet up with some of his old high school friends. And so, yeah, there you do get the cat's POV,
mhm,
but you also get the POV of the old friends and
right.
how they met the main character. You never see the main character through his own eyes.
Ooh, that's kind of cool.
It's so
I like
fascinating.
that. Yeah.
How do you navigate a story without telling the main character's POV, but
You're
everyone else's?
you're building your protagonist through the eyes of everyone else in the story, which is a very cool storytelling element. I like that.
And yes, I mean, it does have a sad ending to the story, but at the same time, it was heartwarming in how it was handled.
Yeah.
Uh, if anyone's going through a hard time in their life, I could see this being a healing book as well,
Mm,
because it handles those hard topics that we deal with loss, we deal with
right,
confusion, we deal with dark moments in our life, but this also gives it a beautiful touch that balances that.
right.
And so, if all they took away was depressed and meandering, and not enough cat, I there might be another book out there that's better for you.
There's quite a few
That's
Japanese books about cats.
They love their cats. I
They
don't blame
do,
them.
which makes me love them because they love cats, so
Right? Yeah,
yeah.
so, to me, I loved it for everything that it was because of
Mm,
how it handled characters, because
yeah.
of how it handled storytelling, but I can see it not working for people, especially if they're not familiar with that type of storytelling in the culture of Japan. That's my answer. Read
Which leads
Warbreaker.
perfectly into the second review that I
Oh,
pulled.
I don't hold on.
Admittedly, I seem to have a problem with most contemporary Japanese comfort reads.
Okay.
Novels that offer philosophical life lessons on the side, such as Sweet Bean Paste, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, etc. There's just something about them that doesn't sit well with me, but that's a rant for another day. I shall just avoid them from now on, cat or no cat. My expectation was low to begin with, but I was still disappointed. I guess it wasn't low enough.
This is like their fourth try at Japanese literary fiction?
Apparently, and the funny thing about this is I actually bought Sweet Bean Paste like a week and a half ago
Oh,
on
well,
my
clearly you
Kindle.
shouldn't read it.
Clearly. Because I don't want a contemporary Japanese comfort read with a philosophical life lesson. That doesn't sound like a fun time at all.
Can I just say something here? Red bean paste is the most delicious thing in the
Oh, it's
world, and
so
you
good.
cannot prove me
S
wrong. You cannot
so good.
change my mind.
So good.
You shoulda known if you didn't like the first 3 and you didn't like the style of the first 3 that
That's
this
a
one
very
was.
common Japanese storytelling structure.
And this is, like, one of the most beloved ones as far as I've seen.
Yeah.
I
There
mean,
were a
good for
lot of
you for
complaints about
trying.
that in the one-star review section.
It's just not for you.
That's
It's just
okay, and that's fine.
more copies of the books for the rest of the world.
I think it's
Um
interesting, and I don't know if you found this too. There's a big difference between this book and storytelling style isn't for me
Mm,
versus it's objectively bad. And I feel like that line really gets blurred for a lot of people where they'll just and like the entire like Japanese storytelling in general is objectively bad as opposed to it just doesn't work for me, which is totally
yeah.
fair.
Yeah, I would say the line, "It doesn't work for me," is much more reasonable
Mhm.
because everyone's opinion is going to be different, and you're starting it off with like, "Hey, this is just my experience, but
Right.
everything I'm saying in here, you might love."
Right.
Right? But when you say something is objectively bad, to me, it comes from a place of ego. I could be wrong on that. I don't know the person or where they're coming from, what their experience is like, but yeah, it sounds egotistical to me.
That's about as close to some shade, I think, as we've gotten thus far, Kayla. That was
Canadian politeness.
That was a very, like, underhanded, like, that was a that was a chop right there.
Can you tell I worked in customer service?
Yep.
So I have The Outsiders.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
I will warn you, these are short, and I don't understand the references they're making. You will.
Okay.
All right. Every time I read the names Ponyboy and Soda Pop, I want to gouge my eyes out. I'm assuming those are names.
Yeah, those are characters in the book. You haven't
Gotcha.
read Outsiders?
Do I get immediately vetoed from the channel? This video?
There's a grace period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Enough
Well,
time to
allow a
read
grace
it?
period, yeah. I actually would love to know your thoughts on Outside. I didn't know you hadn't
Hmm.
read it. That
I-
you let me know. It's very
Okay.
short.
I'm writing it down.
It's very short, and it's in my top 10 of all time.
Oh,
And the
interesting.
film adaptation was what I saw first, and I just read
Hmm.
the book 2 years ago now. Loved it. They're very close. Like, the film
That
was
is rare.
exceptionally well done in terms of a faithful adaptation. Ponyboy Curtis is our main character in The Outsiders, and he is a 14-year-old boy and grows up in kind of a rough part of town. And it's, I mean, you know, I love me a Motley Crue.
Yep.
It's S tier. S
Okay.
tier. And it's going to
Interesting.
rip your heart out and be the most wholesome, hard. It's
You
just
had me at rip my heart out.
but yeah, I mean, they're unconventional names. Yes, and they actually do address that in the book,
Oh,
that their
so
parents gave them some weird names.
okay. Well, this person just did not
That's
like the
fine
name
though. I mean, I can
choices.
see how you'd be like, "Really? You're gonna name your kid Soda Pop?" That's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
I mean, there are reactions to names like that now,
Yeah,
today.
yep.
We won't go
There are
there.
some choices that are made. Yep.
And on to the next one. This book is awful. Like 50% of fanfics I read are better than this. I've waited almost 1 year to the date to write a review because I didn't have the words to describe how bad this actually is.
Clearly, you still don't. Sorry.
No,
Um, okay.
they made choices.
I will say, and having read some fan fiction in my lifetime, particular, it's been a while, but occasionally I dabble back into the fan fiction pools just to prove to myself that largely it's as bad as I remember. Um, I will say though, there are some people whose fan fictions are really good. Like there are
Some
some
have,
people that legitimately are like rocking it in the fan fiction community. Um, and that's cool because we all just want to spend more time with our favorite books and characters, and that's awesome. So fan fiction, while a majority of it is a dumpster fire, there are some gems there to be found for sure. The Outsiders is not fan fiction level, in my opinion, unless you're talking about
sure.
really well done fan fiction, then sure. But yeah, what was I going to say other than that? There was one other point I was going to respond to, and I can't remember what it was.
How long they took to write the review?
I've done that. That's
Okay.
fair. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I've taken a while. Like I'm actually going back and writing Goodreads reviews now because I'm trying to catch up with all the books that I forgot to write reviews for. But yeah, it's not, and it was also, by the way, written by a 16-year-old.
Ah,
And honestly, she's a better writer than a lot of adults that I've read. So,
mm. See, what I find interesting is the fanfic thing because I've actually seen books starting to pop up in Indigo that started
mhm,
off as fan fiction and now they're being
yep.
published into full copies and they're getting the sprayed edges and all that fancy stuff.
Well, there's
Um,
some NYT bestsellers that are
yeah,
fan fictions, and we won't name any names or throw any shade, but
but yeah, it's they have a place, they have an audience
absolutely.
for a reason.
And a lot of great
Um,
writers started by writing
yeah,
fan fiction because mimicry is an excellent way to start an art process. That's not how you want to end up, but
but
um
to get feedback as well.
Exactly. I'm surprised I got more heated on that one than I did with White Fang.
True colors are showing there, Tori.
I think I'm just gonna get more and more unhinged as we get towards the end.
Probably. My tea is now cold, so that's probably what's
Ooh,
gonna happen
yep,
too, so
it's taking a turn now.
Yep.
This is one, and this is I would love if I if I remembered more of it, we should have done a discussion, the 2 of us on this book when we first read it, because we had completely
Oh,
opposite experiences with
I
it.
think I know which one this is.
Let's dip into A Court of Broken Knives by Anna Smith Spark, which you raved about last year, right? It was your, like, series of the year in
Yes.
2024. Loved it, amazing, and I
Adored
love
it.
that for you.
There was a slight tinge of tone in your voice there.
I love that for you, genuinely.
Right.
Reads like an edgelord teenager fantasy. The author put in gore and no words because there's no substance behind the book. Don't read if you have brain cells to lose.
No words?
I know, that one made me laugh too. I was like, wow.
You can say curse words. Just
Can we?
no words. No, it's
Okay.
no words from now on.
I think that's pretty funny. That's inspired, honestly.
Disclaimer, this book has no words.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's grimdark fantasy, and to me, it's more grimdark than Joe Abercrombie.
Oh,
Um,
100% agree. Yep.
so it's gonna be the worst of humanity. Absolutely.
Mhm.
It just the most depraved of humanity in that book. Um, I don't remember much else from the no.
Reads like an edgelord teenager
Oh,
fantasy was the first.
that's the grimdark though. And well, that might actually come from the writing style, which I will say 50% of people who read this hate it. They
It was
hate
a
the writing
challenge
style.
to find one-star reviews that weren't only talking about the writing style.
I would imagine that's what they're talking about because it is very short, snappy
Mm.
lines. It's very
Mhm.
short, concise descriptions. Dialogue can be very like curt and dry in some cases.
Mm.
Um, but for me, part of the reason why I love this series so much is that I
Yeah,
love it added to the grittiness of the world, the hardness of the characters, and how much they just are surviving. Many of these characters are in survival mode,
yeah,
looking to get coin to feed themselves for the next day.
right.
Um, some of them are on the run, and the main character that is the center of all this madness is Mad himself, and is setting the world on fire for his own goals, right? So for me, it was a fascinating psychological look into these characters over the course of the trilogy
Right.
because you see how far that insanity goes, the mob mentality that arises out of that,
Yeah.
which is terrifying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
These books explore the worst of humanity through terrible people. And to me, even when it comes towards the end of the trilogy, they have that terribleness about them, but she gives them, like, inklings of, they could be good, they have chances to make ethical choices, and then she deals with those circumstances, I think, realistically and with
Sure.
justice to the characters,
Yeah.
right?
Stays true
It
to the yeah.
She's true to them, but she pops those little, like, "Oh, are you gonna be a good person today?" Or like, "Oh, you got a chance." And then, and you could take the chance and it blows up in your face, who knows,
Yeah,
right?
which is
So,
true. Yeah.
yeah, I it's not for everyone. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's dark. I could see where it would feel like an edgy teen thing if you're not reading much past it. It's a slow burn
I don't know
too.
if you would say this, just
Mm,
briefly, but I think with the amount of experience we both have in reading fantasy at this point, I think we're more likely to fall in love with a series that is so on the outskirts of, like, the traditional what we think of as fantasy, because
mm,
that freshness and uniqueness is something that always intrigues me when an author really does something different,
yeah,
or, like, makes me feel something in a fantasy story that I haven't for a long time with other things I've been reading, or
yeah.
tries something new. I really appreciate that. It doesn't always work, but
No.
I appreciate it.
You appreciate they tried.
I
No,
do, I do.
I would agree. I would say the same for Nomads of the Sea. It
Yeah,
did something different.
it
It
did. Yep,
worked for me. Is it
yep,
gonna work for everyone? Probably not. Same as this series does not work
yeah.
for everyone, but I appreciate that authors take their creativity, take their ideas, and try something different because oftentimes that that's what leads to household names. This is a series that's divisive.
It is. It's very divisive. It is one
Mhm.
of the lowest the first book is one of the lowest rated books in terms of the average rating that I've
Yeah,
ever read. I think there's only 2 or 3 books on my list that are lower than it,
yeah.
which
If
is interesting to me.
if you are the type of reader who's pure escapism, don't
Mm,
read this.
right.
This is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not for you.
Agreed.
Not
Yeah,
at all. I
yeah.
would say this is closer to Malazan than anything in terms of, like,
Yeah,
depressive and immersive and just terrible things happening,
yeah.
with a little magic thrown in there.
Sure, as you do.
Demons, you know.
Sprinkling.
You know.
Speaking of the writing style,
Mhm.
I had to do one because it's like
It's the only thing.
98% of the one-star reviews. The author does have a way with words, but it was excessive. Lines about gulls screaming or shadows in his eyes or whatever, constantly shoved down my throat, got old very quickly. Overall, I was just left feeling like the plot was just a weak vehicle for the author to show off how literary she is. We got to
It's a
squeeze
slow burn.
that.
It's a slow burn. It's a slow burn. Of course, she's gonna and it's a descriptive book to a degree.
It's very descriptive. Yeah.
Of course, you're gonna get lost in what the beach looks like. Yeah, that's her writing style. I mean, you love it or you hate it. That
Yeah. I mean,
you know,
I'm currently reading Memories of Ice by Stephen Erickson, which is book 3 in
I don't.
Malazan. The
Yeah,
first 200 pages are dominated by discussions in a campaign tent.
yeah. I Memories of Ice was not my favorite.
Like, and I love this series, and I'm sitting over
Mhm.
here like,
But there are other readers who are huge fans. They say that's
love
their
it.
favorite one, and I
Yeah,
was like, why? Why?
yeah.
Just
I
we're
love it, but it's not my favorite.
no, no.
No. I mean, not to get into Malazan, but the second half of Memories of Ice is also very different in pacing than the first half.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Which
and there are, like, hints and stuff dropped all throughout it, but, like, you have 100 pages in between each hint, so you have
Yep.
100 pages you have to get
See,
through
that's
before you get to
the
the
plus
hint.
side of Anna Smith Sparks books is that they're not that long.
There are 3 books, I think each one is about 3 to 400 pages.
Yep.
You're good, and when
You're
I say
good.
that's still a slow burn, I'm talking, like, over the course of the entire trilogy. Take that. That's little take that head bubble.
I like the yeah, that's good.
I have Lies of Locke Lamora for you.
Mm,
I
'kay.
This one's a little bit long.
Okay. Alright, buckle in, everybody. Let's
Buckle
do
in.
this.
This was maybe one of the worst books I've ever read.
Okay.
Granted, I had just finished reading Rothfuss, Martin, and some Sanderson novels. But dear Lord, this book was awful. No direction, a million proper nouns that have absolutely no relevance to the story, and an Ocean's 11 style plot. Just kidding. Nothing clever, nothing smart whatsoever happens. Just luck and poor writing. Sorry, I can't stand this book. I was going to donate my copy to our local library, but I realized I didn't want anyone else to read it either. You okay? I
I'm
had to pick
deeply
that one.
offended by the end of that comment.
I had to pick it.
I'm legitimately trying to remember if I have ever thrown a book away.
No,
I don't
donate it. Give it to
maybe an
someone.
old one that was falling apart. Like,
This person had a vendetta. There's
clearly. Okay. I'm trying to understand if I should be offended at the first part because are they saying that they had read Rothfuss, Martin, and Sanderson and been like a big fan?
I
Or are
think
they saying this is as bad as,
or worse than. I think
worse
that's what they're
than?
saying. This is maybe
Okay.
one of the worst books I've ever read. Granted, I had just finished reading Rothfuss, Martin, and Sanderson.
Yeah, so it
I
doesn't sound like they're super positive on those 3 authors either.
potentially, they could mean the opposite, it just
I don't know.
depends.
Either way, it's offensive. Um, this is where subjectivity comes in heavily, because obviously Lies of Locke Lamora is one of my favorite fantasy books of all time. So I would rate it much more highly, especially in terms of just like the writing and the immersion that I had, high above Sanderson.
Mm.
I personally will probably never read Rothfuss. One of the things Lynch doesn't get enough credit for from the people that love his books is he's a very good character writer. And I think a
Okay.
lot of people focus on the characters and the Motley Crew and the, we love Locke and
Mhm.
Jean and, and that's true. Absolutely. But again, like we were just talking about, the freshness of the world building and how like interesting, like he can write an atmosphere like nobody's business.
Ooh,
It's
okay.
so good. It's dark too. Like it's one of those
Mhm.
books that I always, when I'm talking about it, I'm always like, oh yeah, that was like way darker than I'm remembering, wasn't it? Yeah, definitely. Like it is pretty grim dark.
Just put, like,
Um,
some glasses over your eyes for that
yeah, I
part.
was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's such a nice story about friends, and then I remember certain parts of it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen, didn't it? So yeah, like everyone's entitled to their wrong opinion,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah, and there's different types of books for everyone, right?
Yeah,
Like, there are some people who love the whole main character can never die thing. I don't like that.
I hate plot armor so much.
That it's like, people like their
Like,
happy fantasy world where
yeah,
characters always get
and
out of
that's
everything, and
fine.
that's great.
And like I can
Great.
understand, and I don't think this is where this review is going, but I can completely understand people who don't want to read, the Malazan, the Anna Smith Spark, the Abercrombies of the world, because
Mhm.
life is hard and dark, and they need like a lift out of that. So I get that. And
Right.
I completely respect that, because that is definitely sometimes a healthier coping mechanism, I think, than those of us who are just like, bury me in the mud and the blood and the, I want to read all of it.
Yes.
I'm kind of getting off on a tangent. I disagree, obviously, but I'm sorry it didn't work for this person, and I hope they find a different author that they enjoy more.
I hope they donated that book.
I am not optimistic. I, I mean, maybe they said it for shock value. I don't know,
Okay,
but
maybe, maybe.
like it's,
Please give it to someone else who might
please give
enjoy
it to
it.
someone else,
That's
because I guarantee you
you know.
someone will love it.
Alright, so I've got 2 other options. I'm actually gonna pick the second one because the first one has quite a bit of curse words. Um,
No, no words. Okay.
no. No, no, no words.
No, 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 no,
Um,
no words.
that'll get confusing.
Pearl clutching words.
Can't have those.
No.
Nope. This likely suffers from reading right after Leviathan wakes, but this scrappy group of ne'er-do-wells managed to mainly annoy me. I'm
Mhm.
gonna let you say your thing first. I haven't read this book, but I have a thought
That's
after
it?
you're done. That's it. That's
Oh, that's the tweet. I mean, I haven't read Leviathan Wakes, so I'm glad that it sounds like they enjoyed that immensely,
mhm.
which is great. I love to hear that people are enjoying their reads.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. They're definitely a group of ne'er-do-wells, and they are children from very rough upbringings when we meet them. So they're not like pleasant, polite, and pretty, which is what I kind of find them scruffy and lovable for.
Mhm.
It's kind of it's like a grimdark version of Tom and Huck, sort of, to be honest, like that kind of a vibe almost. Yeah, like
Playful kind of friends thing and
yeah, and like the
yeah.
Tom Sawyer, like conning his friends into whitewashing the fence for him is 100% Locke Lamora, like
Right.
100% something he would do.
There you
So
go.
yeah, I'm sorry they didn't enjoy it, but I'm glad they liked Leviathan Wakes.
That is great. I didn't like it.
I haven't read it yet. It's on my list for this year.
I hope you enjoy it. I will say that. I do think there's good aspects to it. It wasn't for me.
That's
Just
fair.
wasn't for me, one of those books. But yeah, I could see when you're comparing those 2 type of character casts, the Leviathan Wakes characters are a little bit, uh, down in the dumps, depressive, and, woe is life and trying to survive kinda thing. Whereas, you know,
Bunch
Locke
of scrappy
Lamora,
kids. Yep.
scrappy kids,
And they're teenagers. So, yep.
Yep.
They're kind of a hot mess.
There you go. Well, Leviathan Wakes, yeah, they're pretty hot messes too. But
Yeah.
anyway, in the adult angsty way.
Give the people what they want, Kayla. What is the no words?
Should we just read it?
You can read it to whatever level you're comfortable, and we will either bleep the words, or if you want to just skip them.
They're not that bad. They're not that
Okay.
bad. Holy shit. This was a tedious book. Made sure to embrace every chance to demonstrate how much of a gentleman bastard Locke is. He sure is smart, smarter than everyone else, and always wins. Just too much woot for me, I guess.
I
Not that bad.
mean, yeah, if you're opposed to Locke as a character, I can imagine this is not a fun book to read.
No. No, if you don't like the main character, then obviously the
Yeah.
book's not for you.
No. Yeah. Like, it's the people that read Realm of the Elderlings and they can't stand Fitz. And it's like, that's fine. Like, but you're not going to enjoy the. You could try Live Ship Traders. I wouldn't recommend it personally, but,
Yeah.
But yeah, like yeah, that's tough when a main character just really like goes against the grain for you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's fair.
Especially if it's like a highly anticipated book, popular, whatever the case, and you're kind of
Hype
jumping on
is
that
a
hype.
hype is a thing. Hype is a
It
very
is.
dangerous thing.
20-foot pole.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wait to read. I don't read a ton of new releases for that reason, because it's too hyped and I want to have my own experience with it, uncolored
Yeah.
by the groupthink that so many of these popular books come out with.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're surviving. 2 more.
Are we?
All right. Shadow of the Gods by John
Oh,
Gwynne.
I just
Papa
finished this
Gwynne,
trilogy.
who we love, by the way, on this channel. Papa
We
Gwynne's
do.
amazing.
Yes. Before you even say it, no. They're
Okay.
wrong. No, I'm kidding.
Wrong. Thank you.
Wrong.
Go ahead. Your turn. If you're, say, a Viking reenactor who is really excited by the fact the proper name for a fighting knife is sea axe, or that your weapons belt helps hold some of the weight of your mail shirt, and you're really glad that a book would use some word I can't remember for a mail shirt, then boy, have I got a book for you.
Want to make a sassy remark. I really
Please do. Go for it.
Do we not call a Japanese sword a katana?
Yeah.
Is this not a different culture, a different world that has its own terms, and a male shirt is an actual term that was used?
Halberg, I think, is probably what they're referring
Halberd?
to, most
Or
likely.
the halberd? Yeah,
Yeah.
potentially, but, like, it's a fantasy world. It's got its own words, it's got its own terms. I think one of the biggest problems people have with this book and this series is the terminology.
Mhm.
Like thought cage.
That one
Right?
was all over the 1-star reviews. Like, the number of times I
People
saw the
hate
phrase,
it.
"My thought cage hurts," in
Yes.
the 1-star reviews.
Yep.
That's fair. Like, thought cage is a choice, and, like, I get it, but I feel like that one, I can see that. I can see that.
To me, it's just you're creating your world, you're creating your
Yeah.
terminology, right? When you look at words we use today in the English language, they differ very much over history.
Yeah.
I am not even gonna get into examples because 'cause I'm not that educated, but, even hearing some professionals, they break down the old English language and how it would be pronounced.
Right.
It sounds nothing like what we talk about today.
No.
I think, like, w wife is whiff or something like that, like, we would have no clue what anyone's
Mm-mm.
saying. So for me, it made it more immersive.
Yes.
I get why people don't get it. It
Yeah.
can be hard to settle into, but once you do, it's
Well, and
awesome.
also, like, recognizing, okay, I'm a weapons and armor nerd.
Mhm.
Not everybody's gonna be.
Exactly,
That's
yeah,
fair,
that's fair.
but I feel like once you know what it is,
Yeah.
does it really bother you that much that it's called what it is.
I also think all this tells me really is that there's not enough Norse fantasy out there,
That's a hot take.
right? Well, like, if this is their first delve into Norse fantasy,
Yeah.
then of course it's gonna feel foreign. Of course it's
Yeah.
gonna feel
As with
hard to get
any
into.
honestly, any fantasy world that's inspired. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and I don't know if that was a hot take or not. I have a hard time finding Norse, uh, fantasy, but
We should read the Hanged God trilogy at some point together.
I have that one.
I
We
do
should
too.
read it.
Yeah, we should.
Um, this entire video is just a
Just us
front for
setting up
us.
buddy reads.
Yeah, it's just a
It's
front.
true.
We're
It's true. Okay.
Yeah.
The three main characters are two-dimensional and cliched. A nobleman's daughter / warrior, a
Mm.
former slave / warrior, and a mother / warrior. It's no surprise that in such a diverse group, the only solution to any problem is violence.
First of all, one of those characters doesn't start as a warrior.
It's true.
He's a slave.
True.
He has no concept of fighting. It's later on that he
Which
develops.
is kind of comical, actually,
He
at
gets, like,
points.
adopted by a warrior band, you know? You
Yeah.
kinda don't have a choice of career when that happens.
No.
You just, like, warrior band goes along, "Oh, you're coming with us now."
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I will half agree. Because
Okay.
Shadow of the Gods is set up.
Yeah.
It is set up. You are getting archetypes of characters.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're gonna get the angry mom warrior character in this because I feel like in that kind of medieval type world, moms either are homemakers or they go to work, right? They learn they learn how to fight.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I don't feel like there's a whole lot of options in that kind of world. But we're also following epic fantasy, which mainly follows warriors.
Right.
We're not following the
Yeah.
baker, you know? We're not following the blacksmith. Um,
Baker
but
would be
I
a fun protagonist, though.
it would, 3-day-old hard loaf of bread is the weapon.
Terry Pratchett does something like that with dwarven bread
Oh,
being,
well,
like, an actual weapon. Yeah.
now I need to read it. Now I
You
need to read it. It's
do.
got bread.
Another thing you need to read.
Yes, just add it to the TBR. But I will half agree because I do think
Yeah.
the first book is a lot of setup and a lot of character
What?
orientation and getting that's what first books are though,
Weird.
right? You have your archetypes and then you develop on them.
Right.
Um, I
Yeah.
do think where they end up going is really interesting, but partly too why I half agree with this is I didn't like 2 of the 3 main characters when I started
Same.
this, but I loved them by the time I was done.
Yeah. That's what I'm guessing is that I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna have a better experience the further into the trilogy I'm gonna get. Yeah.
Yeah, they get more interesting, right? Because you spend more time with them, they're
Right.
going through a lot of stuff. First book is set up. Alright, I've got a beloved. I assume beloved, but I think it's been taken down in tears lately. Um, Red Rising.
Well, if you're looking at the series as one unit,
Okay, so trilogy's
yes.
safe.
The trilogy's not going anywhere. The
Okay.
trilogy is
Okay, so the
very
rest
near
doesn't
the end.
exist is what I'm hearing.
The
Um,
rest is its own thing. It was a
okay.
choice. It's their Lightbringer was much better. I'll give it that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, fair enough. This one is very short, and I'm gonna say the Red Rising one-star ones were, tricky to
Entertaining?
sort through. I tried to pick some that were, yeah, not repetitive.
Yeah.
Uh, this one is probably gonna be the shortest one on this list.
Okay.
Deleting this from my brain.
I wish I could do that so I could read it again for the first time.
But
That sounds amazing.
what if you don't have the same experience the second second hoping to be the first read through, right? You've wiped
I
it from
don't
your brain.
know. I've read the first book 7 or 8 times now.
Yeah, but it's not the first time,
I
as though your
know.
mind was right, and you're a different person than you were when you first read it. We're here for the in-depth questions.
This is giving me a tiny amount of existential crisis, I won't lie. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well done.
Cheers.
Yeah, okay, well, sounds like you need some space in there, so hopefully that helps.
We've crossed the line.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's again, the thing with Red Rising, I say that I don't mean that, guys, but like the thing with Red Rising is I think out of all of my favorite books, that especially the first one is the like I've gotten the most crap for in general in terms of like me putting it up there with a lot of other unmentioned series that are more literary. So like I'm very used to this. You can't hurt me with Red Rising anymore. Like you really can't. Pierce Brown can hurt me. He's the only one.
Can we coin the phrase literary police, like grammar police back in
Yeah.
the day, literary police?
Yes. There's
Yeah.
some very elitist gatekeepers in the community that are like, you can't like that because it's not like as literary as X thing.
Lord of the Rings.
Often
Don't
true.
you love
Yeah.
that comparison?
I do. Yeah.
I will say I liked many aspects of the book, but there was also a lot. I was like 50-50 on
Which is
this.
fair. Yep.
And for me, talking about earlier how the main character, if you don't like the main character, it's going to be a rough ride for you. That's me.
Yeah.
I don't like Darrow.
Darrow is not the reason I love Red Rising. And I tell people that all the time. He's fine. Like he's fine. But the magic for me of Red Rising is the other characters and Darrow in relation to the other characters. That's what I love about it. But him on his own, meh.
He's like a plain Jane.
He's fine.
He's fine.
He's fine.
He got issues, but he's fine. You cannot tell me he does not have issues.
Oh, boy needs therapy for sure.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and he's he's kind of he's a little dumpster fire, and we love him for that.
Yeah, let your light shine, man.
That's true. Yeah.
So this one has a tagline and then the actual review.
Okay.
Terribly childish and unimaginative, unrealistic, stark themes. The prose is horrifically flowery, the themes unbelievably bland and yet indigestibly stark at the same time. Simply put, the writing is so bad as to preclude the suspension of disbelief. Was that flowery writing to me?
No. You're going to use the word preclude, okay? Like, hold on. Pause.
I'm not sure what defines as flowery.
And I like how we got like more that way as the review goes on. Okay, first of all, there's a fine line. Like, if you're going to say that something in fantasy or sci-fi is unrealistic, you better come with some receipts because that is the entire point of the genre.
Yep.
Is to not be like our reality. I mean, it has themes that are derivative of our reality and help us understand our reality, etc., etc. But like the whole point is to read something that's very drastically unlike what
something new, different,
something in a secondary world or out in the planet somewhere. And like, so I always like unrealistic is like, oh, that's not how that works. Which even then there's a line, right? But it's like basic human function things. I mean, like with horses, when a fantasy very clearly is like, this isn't magical, but we galloped our horses for 3 days straight. And I'm like, yeah, you had dead horses like a day, 2 days ago. Like, okay.
Concerning.
It's an extreme, but like, yeah.
I know. Okay, it's been a while since I've read this. I'm going to put that out there, but I don't remember it having anything so crazily different from any other sci-fi that I've read.
No. I think what I think sometimes what trips people up about Red Rising is it is sci fantasy, and I will die on that hill. And people argue with me all the time. No, it's just sci-fi. I disagree. I think that it is a epic fantasy style story. A lot of
Mm.
the elements and structure is the same, set as a space opera, a sci-fi
Right.
space opera. So it is, in my opinion, sci-fantasy.
Okay.
In terms of, it's more sci-fi, but it has a lot of epic fantasy elements to it.
Mm.
And I think because it kind of sits in that middle area, people want it to swing one way or the other, and it doesn't,
Mm.
which is what I love about it. And it's my sci-fantasy is my favorite way to read any kind of sci-fi because I think it's a great blend.
Yeah, you get some
Um,
really cool stuff in that
yeah,
blending of genres.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack in that. We could be here for an hour.
Yeah. I
But
thought
yeah,
it was fun.
like the childishness of it makes me smile a little bit because first you're saying it's too childish, but then also it's too flowery and too much.
We
Like,
don't go into contradictions.
no, like what is it? I'm
It
confused.
Everyone's definition of that might be different for all we
It's
know
true.
too.
And it's more sparse prose
Mm.
style, which I totally agree with. And
Yeah.
again, that's not going to work for it, but that doesn't necessarily make it childish just because, and it's like what we were talking about with the Japanese storytelling
Right.
styles, same thing. Just because it's a simple storytelling structure does not make it
Yeah.
like
Any
juvenile.
less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or lesser.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the childish aspect is in terms of
Character
the
base.
characters, the
Probably.
age of them. Because I think a lot of people, because like I was like this as well when I went into this, I was expecting the characters to be a bit older.
Mm,
But
mhm.
they are young adults
Yeah.
and they are written like young adults.
Right.
Right? In my opinion, they had like, obviously, their circumstances of life are way worse, but they have the reactions and the emotional control that you would probably see in a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that's
Which
how they
to me
are.
is one of the reasons why I always go back to what I think is brilliant about that is taking Darrow, who
Mhm,
we meet as a husband, a worker. He has a 9 to 5, right?
mhm, or longer.
Basically, or longer. He is facing life or death every day,
Mhm,
working for someone else,
yep,
and he is a major breadwinner for his entire community. And then we juxtapose him with a bunch of posh teenagers. And even though he's the same age as them, like there's so many moments in the story where Darrow's just like, you guys are
yeah,
children. And I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, like comparatively, which is, I think, one of the cool things about the story in book one that we kind of move away from very quickly in book 2 and 3, which is,
right.
I love book 2 and 3. But I think that that trips people up a lot is that we kind of start in that more young character space and then kind of branch out into the next 2 books. That never
Yeah.
bothered me, but I know a lot of people get tripped up by that. It's a comfort read for me, so I at this
Hey.
point I'm not very objective anymore. Another book that we've both read. I think I have read everything on your list except for I'm going to be reading Traveling Cat Chronicles this year. I have not read Bear and the
Mm,
Nightingale, and that is the only one.
dang, okay.
So let's go into sort of Kaigen,
Oh, I'm here
which
for it,
I
let's do it.
know there were some sections in that that hit you and I both very hard.
Mm,
ML Long was like, how many deep moments and themes can I cram
mhm.
into a single volume of storytelling?
How many times can
Um,
I rip apart a reader and then put
yeah,
them back together and then rip them apart again? Mhm.
yeah, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a skill set. One that we all strive for, you know. Speaking of fan fiction, you ready for this?
No.
I swear I read this fan fiction when I was 13. It doesn't develop in a meaningful enough way. Every motif feels skin deep and predictable. I was left wanting more at every twist and turn and being so bored through all of it that I didn't care about the ending. If you like easy reading fantasies, I recommend this. Otherwise, it's not worth 600 ill used pages.
You take that back, sir or madam, or
They will fight
take that
you.
back. They are not ill-used, no. Um, this is it's kinda like earlier when we were talking about divisive books and it's been
Mm,
sparked. This is another one. I
which
know so many
surprises me.
people who
Yeah.
don't like it, and people
Yeah.
who are my friends and I buddy read them with.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and people who are like, "Oh, I'll try it again. Didn't work. try it again. I give up. You know,
Yeah.
I get it. This is a divisive book. It's not for everyone.
Right.
I think if you have um, had closer experiences to the themes that it's
Yep.
going over, it's gonna hit a
Yeah.
lot better for you. As a parent,
Yes.
yeah, I read this when I was pregnant with my son.
Yep. Oof.
It was oof.
It was
It
big
was
oof.
would not recommend.
Yep. I can see that.
But I think if you are closer to the events that are happening in the book, then yeah, you're probably gonna connect with it a little bit better.
Yeah.
I would consider the storytelling more entry level.
For sure. Yeah.
It's pretty systematic in where
Yeah.
it's gonna go, but it does deal with really dark themes. There's war, the events of war, the losses that happen in war, how that affects families, and the aftermath that is left to just pick up.
Violence
Um,
outside of combat that is a result of war. Yeah.
and the people caught in the machinations of governments,
Yes.
um, who are being misled. So I yeah, I can see that. I can see it not working for people. I really liked it. I thought it was a great read.
Yeah.
It made me cry multiple times. Also
Yep.
not in the best circumstances to read it, but I would still read it again today.
Mhm.
Um, I will say if you're in a very hard point of your life, don't not
Yep.
the time to pick up this book.
Not the time.
No, lots of trigger warnings in this one.
Yep.
But I think the situations are handled realistically
Yeah, for
and
the
they're
most part,
pretty
I agree with
raw.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty raw, you
Yeah.
know? You get all, like, the big dramatic events, but then you get, like, the very intimate friends clashing kind of moments.
Right.
So, yeah, and you have, like, marital issues,
Right.
right? Like, very small things that are actually bigger, but then the really big things that are
Really, yeah.
devastating.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really, really disliked the superhero crime fighter aspect that was introduced as a character's backstory. I
Mm.
honestly think the author did a poor job of blending the historical setting with modern technology. The juxtaposition was really awkward and it never felt like a natural part of the world. Overall, I don't think it's a book that should be avoided. Just don't expect it to live up to the hype.
Yeah, see, this one's tricky too because I do think sort of Kaigen got quite a bit of hype. It was the hype train thing.
Mhm. It was
Um,
the indie novel.
it was, it
Mhm.
was. In terms of the technology, I can kind of see where they're coming
Mhm.
from, although it was believable for me. This is an
Mhm.
island that is basically, medieval Japan,
Yeah.
and they live like medieval Japan, and the enemies, outside countries use more advanced technologies like cell phone towers and stuff
Mhm.
and airplanes, and all of that is hidden from this
Very
island.
isolated. Yeah.
They're very isolated. Having knowing people in my life that live in very isolated communities, that's believable for me.
Right.
They
Yeah.
they slowly get that technology introduced over the years, and they're like, "What is this? Why are we using it? Why do I need Bell?" That's
Yeah.
that's I get it. Um, yeah, it was definitely a hype train book. For me, I liked it. Not gonna work for everyone.
Yeah.
What was their other comment?
The one the reason I picked this is because I actually agree with this. The
Okay.
backstory of
Mm,
Misaki
yes.
not being well worked into the general book, and I have said before that, like, if that part was removed, I would have given this book 5 stars easily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it could have been worked in better. I think it actually would have been better if the final chapter was not there.
Agreed.
The
Yes.
final chapter was not
It
necessary.
was not necessary. Yeah.
In my brain, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It was kind of an attempt at possible continuation
Right. Which
or
she has since said is not gonna happen at this point.
yeah, yeah. So, it was a thing, it was a choice. I think it could have been handled or woven in better.
Yeah.
Maybe earlier on or something like that, but I do like the mystery that we get with the main character and why she is struggling so
Mhm.
much with her marriage and hiding who she is kind of thing.
Right.
Um, you know, again, I haven't experienced arranged marriages. I don't know what that would be like for someone. So that one, yeah, I can see where that would be a hard thing. But I do think it was an interesting concept to take a
Agreed.
very previously independent person and then make them subservient
Yeah.
and see how that.
See what the consequences are. Yep.
All right. I have,
Last one.
I actually have one more after this.
You do. How did
I
we do that?
do. I have 7.
I have 6. How did you have one more than me?
We could do mine as a bonus because it was the only 1 star I could find for that
Okay.
book.
Perfect.
Does that work? Okay.
Yeah.
So, Deadhouse Gates.
Oh, yes.
You and I love this
Duh.
one.
Ugh. Love that book.
Yeah, both you and I read this not together. Did we read this together? I can't
No,
remember.
I just reread it last fall.
Okay. So we, you know, close enough. Both enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first one I have for you is the first book was bad enough. Now we are starting over with all new characters and more plotless nonsense. It's just bad writing. I'm not sorry for speaking the truth.
It is very jarring to
Yeah.
spend as much time and depth as Erickson does on a set of characters and then be like, "Ha, psych, new continent." That's fair. Like, that can be very jarring. I the bad writing I take umbrage with because it's not. Like, it's very beautifully written. I do agree
Mm,
with the fact that it in terms of, like, if you're looking for a super linear beat by beat plot, that is not Malazan. It's not what you're gonna get. It is basically, you've been dropped into hundreds of thousands of years of history,
mhm.
and it's following multiple people and other non-human characters.
So hard to
Um,
describe Malazan
it
without.
is so hard to describe Malazan, but it's what's the beauty of Malazan is the vastness of it contained in the intimate perspective of really layered and flawed characters.
Yep.
He does that better than anybody I have ever seen, just in terms of the scope and how he's able to maintain that very intimate immersion with a group of characters despite
Mm,
the epic scale of the world.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So, but I can understand the jarring nature of jumping from cast to cast. That is tricky.
Yeah, and it wasn't originally planned to be the second book, if I remember correctly. Memories of Ice was supposed to be the second
Something
book,
like that. Yeah, and I
but
know Gardens was originally screenplay. And which
interesting.
makes sense, like, if you read it with that in mind, it has a more, like, directly cinematic kind of
A visual
style.
tone to it, yeah.
Yeah, compared to Deadhouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Deadhouse is still my favorite fantasy novel, so
On to the next one.
that's right.
The most boring book I've read in my life. I thought Gardens of the Moon was weak, but compared to this one, it was amazing.
Well, that's a concession at least. Um,
They at least like Gardens of the Moon in comparison, yeah.
Comparison, yeah. There's a lot of comparison going on in these reviews.
You can't compare Malazan with any. Sorry, this is your take. You go.
No, you preach, sister.
It's like its own thing.
It's very much there are certain stories that, like, yes, it's a fantasy.
Mm,
Can you force it into a box which nicely packages the traditional aspects of fantasy? No. And that's why I think it's so beloved by the people who do love it, is that it is a complete league of its own in terms of whether you like it or hate it. It is just over here by itself. Like,
mhm. Yeah.
I've never read anything like it exactly in tone. I've never read anything like it in scope. Like, it's yeah, and he's one of the, and I've been told, I'm very interested to see how I feel at the second half of the series, but he, so far in the series that I've read of it, which is the first 4 books, his handling of very heavy themes is such a raw real and human. Like, it's a very intentional and it's very respectful, the ones that I've read thus far. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's not for everybody. Malazan is definitely not for everybody. I think it gets overkill in the community in terms of, like, it's so intimidating and it's so hard. It's complicated for sure, but it's not like people scare people off with it's not
The
that bad.
fandom can be intimidating.
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
can read it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like, and I remember the pitch that I was given for Malazan before I started reading it. The pitch was, yeah, this is a great series. It's about 20,000 odd pages, and you only have to read it twice to understand it. I was just, why would you start that way?
No.
Why would you start like that?
Guys, this is my
Right?
Malazan. I started it. It was the third adult fantasy book I had ever read, was Gardens of the Moon.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Prior to that, I had read Karen Miller and Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, you made choices.
I was given the book by a friend of mine who was like, hey, you like fantasy? Try this one.
Right.
It's different. That was my pitch to Malazan. And I was outside of the community. I was in college. I was like 20, right? And I read Gardens of the Moon. I had no idea what was happening because I had very little experience in epic fantasy at that point. And I still was like, wow, like, this is so cool. I just want more of it. And I didn't know half of what was going on my first read through of those first four books.
Yeah.
And I loved every minute of it. Like, you don't have to be able to put every puzzle piece in place to read Malazan. You don't. Like, find your characters and just lean into it. And that's my pitch for Malazan.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Also, the long game. Look at
Yeah,
how big this series is. You're in it for the long game.
Yeah, it's a commitment.
You know? Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So the bonus one that I have for you is Iron Prince. And this is the only one-star review I could find, at least that had written review attached to it. Yeah, so we're gonna see what this person has to say.
Okay.
Pretending the guy with the best gun has the worst gun and building a story around that, I just couldn't continue reading. I don't know what this story is about.
Not guns.
What happened?
Literally nobody has guns.
Not a single one?
Not that I can remember. I mean, I might be totally misremembering, but, like,
I think this might be like a metaphor.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I'm being facetious.
Okay.
But no, all of the characters have combat suits, essentially, that they are given when they are accepted into a military academy.
Gotcha.
And they train with these different styles of combat devices that they're not really suits in the sense that they can, like, they start as wrist bracers and then they kind of, like, form over the user.
Oh, interesting. My brain went immediately to Gundam. Sorry.
I'm trying to remember. I know very little about Gundam Wing.
I don't know very much of it. Just like the whole robot suits.
Yeah. It's
animation.
very cool. I disagree. I think the metaphor is pretty weak, but I disagree that it's not interesting because when you start out with a main character in a type of storytelling that so often makes the main character, look at Darrow, for example, like, he's built to be at the top of his class, right?
Yeah.
Ray, not so much. Ray is a scrawny, barely surviving kid who has had health issues in the past, and he literally scrapes into this military academy by his own grit and determination, and he's so far beyond the back of the class that it's, like, literally laughable for a lot of the peers he has.
Right.
And I love a gritty underdog. I do. And man, the relationships are really where this story shines.
Okay.
I love it. I love the relationships. It is very character focused. So if you're looking for more of a, like, fast-paced lit RPG ride, that's not for you.
Gotcha.
It's progression, but
Right.
I love it. It's very good. So
Yeah, I think that's where progression fantasy or lit RPG kind of gets the short end of the stick in terms
yeah.
of first impressions.
Yep.
People who are not familiar with video games or the concept of it often don't understand what's going to end up happening, the value of that type of
Or they feel it
storytelling,
bogs down the yeah.
or it gets repetitive,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So I get where it gets the guy with the best gun has the worst gun. But I get that. There's
Yeah.
probably, a group out there that it doesn't work for, but I think if you're familiar with gaming, if you're familiar with that kind of storytelling and what the characters go through, if you've watched anime even,
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
lot of progression
Very
in anime.
shonen style. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Very.
like, I think Naruto's still doing it, 3 generations later probably,
Yep.
but yeah.
We're on the, like, 12th Hokage at this point.
Probably, yep.
Yep. I feel like we did pretty well.
I hope so.
I
I'm excited
mean,
to see the comments.
me too. All of you who have been watching us and who have stuck with us to this point, you're a real one. Let us know in the comments if you think that we saved our reputation as nice booktubers, or have we crossed the line? But yeah, I knew the only person I could do this particular video with. I'd love to do a series of this, to be honest.
This would be
But
so much fun.
I even think it would be fun to do like 5-star reviews of our least favorite books.
Oh,
That would also
oh,
be fun.
okay,
That might that
alright.
might be harder for us to like, because I feel like we're
Oh,
used to like people not liking our favorite books. That's fine.
yeah.
But like books that we really viscerally didn't like.
You're really gonna test the limits of the Canadian blood, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm on a mission now.
It's
I'm
clearly.
on a mission to see if we can get Kay to just be angry.
It's a very hard thing to do, I'll
We
tell you
want
now.
Hulk Kay.
I don't think there's that voice inside, no. It's a wee little squeak. Um, it would be fun to do, I would be really curious 'cause there's so many different takes
For
on
sure.
books.
Yeah.
I can already think of one and, yeah, anyway. I look forward to coming back for more.
Gonna put a pin in that.
Yes.
But Kay, thank you so much once again for coming on my channel, sharing your time with me, and for graciously sitting through the abuse of your favorite books.
It was a blast. Thank you so much for having me. I like you said, I this was just so much fun to be able to go through and, just remembering everyone has different tastes in reading. Have fun with it. I
Yeah.
hope people, if you're still here watching, I hope you take away that this can be fun,
No, yeah.
right?
It's totally
Reading is
subjective.
fun.
It's fun. Yeah.
Don't take it so seriously
And
because there's.
trauma is more fun with friends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Read those soul-wrenching books together.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to the next one if there is one.
Oh, I'm
But,
sure. I'm
yeah,
never having you on my channel again, ever.
I understand.
This is the end.
Okay.
All
It
right,
was.
everybody. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you are reading some 5-star, not 1-star reads. And we will see you in the next video.